that doesn't really work. It does not work. And so to surrender to lead is to understand where you stop and where they begin, and to understand that everyone that reports into you has free will, and they will opt into whatever it is that they want to do or what they don't want to do based on the beliefs that they hold. And your job as a leader is to help shape their beliefs so that they are aligned with them taking the action that you would like them to take so that you can get a result. And it doesn't look like bossing people around.
Today's Soulful Conversation is with a global leadership strategist, author, keynote speaker, and cultural transformation guide whose work reaches far beyond boardrooms into the art of human belief. She's the Chief Strategy Officer at Culture Partners and co-author of the upcoming book, Surrender to Lead. She has advised Fortune 100 leaders, spoken on world stages, including TEDx, and helped organizations understand one powerful truth. Culture is not what we do, it is how we believe. What makes our work special and especially soulful is our commitment to authenticity, surrender, and inner alignment. Our leadership philosophy is rooted not in control, but in trust, not in fear, but in courage, not in performance alone, but in meaning. Welcome to the show, Jessica. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me for a Soulful Conversation. I'm looking so much forward to learning from you, learning from your, life experience, learning from everything that you do. And, I love your work philosophy, and that's your leadership philosophy. And that's one of the reasons why I want us to, talk on this podcast episode, because I would love to learn, how leaders don't just look up to performance alone, but also meaning, being rooted in not just controlling people, but also trusting them, not just making people fear you, but also giving them the courage to be themselves at the place of work. But before we go into all of the 1,000 questions that I have in my mind bubbling right now to ask, I'd love us to get to know you a little bit better by playing a fun game of wild cards. And we have 3 stacks of cards. The first level is our icebreakers level, and the second level is our confessions level, and third level is getting deep. As I'm speaking with you right now, I'm shuffling the first stack of card, and I get to ask you a question from the card that I'm pulling out randomly right now. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes. So the first question from our icebreakers level is, what is a small insecurity of yours?
Well, today it's my voice because I'm doing a podcast and getting over a cold at the same time. So I'm worried that my voice is going to sound low or I'm going to start coughing. And so that's in the back of my mind.
Yes, I can totally relate with that, because I'm also recovering from a cold, but I've had to record
It's going around.
It's going around, yes. And something is in the air, something is in the water, something is in the air somewhere. I don't know. Sometimes I'm earlier in the podcast journey also, I always get a lot worried about the way my voice sounds, even without the cold. Like, okay, how do I sound? But yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to hear your voice, even when you sound normal. When you hear your voice, which I do a lot because I have a podcast too, I thought every time I think, is that what I really sound like? So maybe it'll be an improvement. Who knows?
Yes, we do. Well, thanks so much for the answer. Are you ready for the next question?
Ready.
Yes. So the question is, what is your biggest struggle right now? This is from our confessions.
Biggest struggle right now is balancing my family life and my work life. Having a book coming out in January, there's a lot of promotional work to be done. I mean, we're doing a lot of client work right now. Our business is growing. And then I also have an 8-year-old daughter. And so being there for her to the degree that I would like to be and being present with my work, that balancing act has been more and more difficult, I've found.
And how do you do it all then, if I may ask?
Well, with a lot of help. I have a lot of help. That's one way that I do it. And when I'm not successful in meeting the standards that I set for myself in my head of how present I need to be, then with a lot of guilt. I mean, I feel guilty a lot of the time, and talking to other women who deal with this, and I know men deal with it too. I think, though, that women probably deal with it more because 80% of single parents are women. So it's something that we carry a lot with us. And, I'm not an exception.
That's true. Yeah, but I trust you're doing it well. And yeah, you're doing the best that you can. And it's a good job, I believe.
Definitely doing the best that I can. That's true.
Are you ready for the last question from our word card?
Yes.
So this is the Getting Deep. And the question is, describe your favorite moment in life. How does it feel now?
Whenever I have these meditations that we get, guided meditations tell you to picture being somewhere calm and serene. And there's a place that I go to every November with my boyfriend in Mexico. We go to the same resort, and on the resort, on the beach, there's a private little beach, and there's a bed on the beach. And it's under this little hut. So you're in the shade, and we go in that and we just lay on this bed on the beach and look at the ocean all day long. And that is my favorite place to be. It's my favorite moment. It's just complete serenity in nature, nothing happening. Whenever I go there, I've turned my phone off so no one can get a hold of me. And I think that's my favorite place to be. It's just serene. I love being bored. That's something that I have grown into. When I was younger, my worst nightmare was being bored. And now being bored is my favorite thing to be.
I think it helps you to, re-strategize and helps you to get centered again, I believe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Wow. I mean, for me, it's quite difficult to shut down everything, but that's something I'm working towards. So I might make you my role model in that regard, in terms of embracing boredom and, just being with yourself, being with those thoughts. Thank you so much for answering our wildcard questions. I'd love us to talk briefly about your upcoming book, which is titled Surrender to Lead. And when I read this title, I was like, wow, this is very intriguing. And I'm looking forward to the book already. I mean, surrender to lead, that could feel like, counterintuitive in a world that celebrates control and certainty, And I'd just like you to explain this to us. Like, what does surrender actually mean to you in the context of leadership and life?
Beautiful question. The surrender is to let go, right? There's a lot that I think as leaders we hold on to. And if I were to simplify it just as an introductory idea of what this book is about, it's about letting go of the need to control and also letting go of the illusion of control. Because I believe a lot of leaders have the belief that they can control much more than they actually can because of where they sit within the organization. They have the title, they have the paycheck, they have the organizational chart with thousands of people reporting into them. And so they believe that they can control the dynamics. They can create an action plan or a strategy and communicate that. And then everyone will just follow your instructions. And then we all know that that's not really true at some level, because if it were that simple, we wouldn't need consultants or leadership books to read to help figure it out why we're not achieving what we want to achieve. But oftentimes the reaction that when employees don't do the work that leaders have is, well, what's wrong with them? This isn't the way that I need it to be. They need to be less entitled. They need to be more proactive. They need to take more accountability. And it's a lot of placing the responsibility to change the dynamic on others. And that doesn't really work. It does not work. And so to surrender to lead is to understand where you stop and where they begin. And to understand that everyone that reports into you has free will, and they will opt into whatever it is that they want to do or what they don't want to do based on the beliefs that they hold. And your job as a leader is to help shape their beliefs so that they are aligned with them taking the action that you would like them to take so that you can get a result. And it doesn't look like bossing people around. And it doesn't look like micromanagement. And it doesn't look like getting frustrated when you don't get what you want. So there's a better way. And that way is to surrender. And when you do let go of that, you have all of this new energy that is available to you. I mean, think of all the time that you spend wishing that things were different than they were. I mean, that's energy that you are spending in a fruitless effort that you could devote to mastering yourself, mastering how you show up and how you adapt. And ultimately, that's what I mean by surrender.
Oh, yes. I love that so much. I would like to ask a follow-up question to that. You talked about, helping the people that are under you, basically. That's the way I understood it. I mean, so my question would be like, so for example, if I have a team of people working with me and I happen to lead them, how can I shape them so that they could fall in line with the vision that I have for the project without micromanaging them, without controlling them?
It's a perfect question. So all of us have deeply held beliefs. You do, I do. Every single person has beliefs about what's important, what's not important, what is worth my time, what's not worth my time, right? And if you want to shift those beliefs or shape those beliefs, you have to ask yourself where those beliefs came from, right? I mean, where do all of your beliefs come from? Where do my beliefs come from? All of our beliefs come from the experiences that we've had
Yeah.
with our family growing up, with our peers, with our jobs, with our friends, with our community. All of those experiences have shaped the beliefs that we hold today. So if you want to shift a belief, you have to shift the experience. And so that is something that you actually can control as a leader, is the experience that you are creating for the people that work for you. And so as a leader, to surrender to lead is to ask myself, what experience do I want to create for my peers, the people that work with me and for me? And what belief will this experience create for them versus another experience? So, for example, just a simple, silly example, we have a meeting and it's a meeting every Monday morning, and one day I cancel the meeting. And I just send a cancellation notice on Outlook, and now everyone gets the message that the meeting is canceled. That's an experience, right? Nothing happened, very dramatic. It's not about whether you're a good person, but there's a different experience if you write a note that says, "Hey team, my daughter is sick this morning and I'm unable to make it to our meeting. And so therefore I'm going to cancel the meeting." And then you send it. Versus if you don't send that note. It might not be a negative experience or a positive experience, but at least you're now having an intentional thought about the experience you're creating and the belief that it creates. Now, for example, let's say you write that note that you think is really nice that says, "My daughter's sick, I'm unable to make the meeting, and so I'm canceling the meeting." Well,
Mm.
one of the beliefs that someone on your team could now hold is they don't think that the meeting is worth happening unless they are there, right? And
Yeah.
so if I can't make it, nobody's meeting, right? Versus another note, which might be, "My daughter's sick. You guys go ahead without me and let me know." That's another experience. So these aren't huge experiences with dramatic belief shaping examples, but there are so many of those that happen every single day. And there are obviously other huge experiences that can happen, right? And so it's coming at it from the mindset of thinking about the beliefs that people hold and the experiences that I will create for them. That is surrendering to reality that everyone is of their own free will. They're going to develop beliefs, surrendering your need to control things and instead focusing your energy on yourself.
Oh, yeah. When you were sharing that right now, I was just thinking about my team and a meeting I have with them every Friday. Sometimes when I'm not available on Fridays, I just leave the meeting in Outlook the way it is and hope that they hold the meeting in my absence. And sometimes I cancel it. So I was like, oh, I should maybe add a note to it, basically, to tell them, "Hey, hi, guys, I'm not around today. Just, do whatever you want to do during the meeting. Discuss the point that we have to discuss." Yeah, have the meeting without me,
Yeah. I mean,
basically. Yeah.
and that's how one leader can show up for their team, right? But when
Mm.
we talk at scale, I mean, this concept is really, really powerful. And an example I will give is this isn't a choice between, do you want to get results or do you want people to like you? I mean, it can sometimes feel like we have to choose between driving performance and being a nice guy. And that's not what's going on here, because in fact, when you operate at the belief level, when you're thinking intentionally about the beliefs your employees hold, you are closer to getting results, and our research shows this. So let me share another example that's a broader, a little bit more of a dramatic story, but that really does directly tie to results. And this was at a medical center. So the emergency department director was having a problem because the people on her team were not filling out this paperwork when patients would come into the emergency department to get their next of kin information, their family members, and who to contact in case of emergency. So she tried everything. She was not surrendering. She was trying to control the team. She told them what to do. She had a meeting about it twice. She held a training to walk them through the form to make sure they knew how to fill out the form. She simplified the form. She started calling people out in a public setting when they weren't filling out the form. Then she tried incentivizing them with a pizza party if they did fill out the form. And all of these these things we call this the action trap.
Yeah.
You get into an action trap of thinking, I want some action to take place. And so I'm going to try and control the actions, everyone else's actions, right? And it didn't work. She was filling out the form. The team was filling out the form 42% of the time. And after 6 months of effort, they were filling out the form 47% of the time. So, I mean, a little bit of an improvement, but not enough to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
So when we started working with her, we asked her, well, what are the beliefs that your team holds about the form? What do they believe about the form in their inner selves? And the reality was they did not believe that the form was worth their time. You know, they were like, we don't have time. This is a waste of our time. We have people coming in with severe issues, right? Gunshot wounds, and we're trying to save their lives. And you want us to do paperwork, you know? So we helped her identify, instead of trying to tell them what to do and control the situation, surrender. Ask yourself, what is an experience that you can create for them that will shift their beliefs? And one of the most powerful experiences that you can create is just telling a story. Storytelling is a powerful experience. That's why Hollywood is so rich, right? Because we love stories. Something speaks to our soul about stories. So she identified 2 true stories that she could tell. The first was a woman who came into the hospital. They did not gather her next of kin information. She fell unconscious and ultimately she died. And they later found out that if they had known something about her medical history, they might have been able to save her. The second story, a man, different time, came into the hospital. They did gather his next of kin information. He fell unconscious and then they called the daughter because they had her information. And the daughter told them about some medical condition he had and some medication he was on from 3 weeks ago, and they saved his life. That was an experience that she could control. She told those 2 stories for 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks, they were collecting the next of kin information 92% of the time.
Wow.
Because the belief shifted, and that gets a result. So this is not just how to be a likable leader, right? This is how to really drive results by tapping into the motivator that is within every single one of your employees. So the way that they think and act is different because the way you showed up was different. And the answer is not nagging them to tell them to do something different or more.
Yeah. The answer is not nagging them. The answer is not pizza. The answer is sharing stories to change their beliefs.
Exactly. Yeah.
And once we're able to share stories that changes their belief, then we'll be able to drive success, true success, whatever we're trying to achieve also. Yeah.
Yeah. We did research with Stanford Graduate Business School about this. And companies that were out of the action trap, they drew 4 times more revenue in 3 years than companies that were stuck in the action trap. So it really does work, but it requires a sort of counterintuitive approach to leading an intentional culture, and it requires surrender. But when you embrace surrender, it can unlock something remarkable for you because you suddenly have unclenched and your energy level goes up, your results go up, and your stress level goes down because you have surrendered to the larger team or to your faith, whatever it is. You know, we all can surrender to different things. I have a faith belief system that I surrender to, but let's say you don't believe in any higher power, you can surrender to the collective intelligence of the team that works with you. Believe that they will have better ideas and operate at a higher level than just what you can bring to the table.
Yeah. That takes some level of humility for some people, to accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some people believe they are the smartest and whatever anyone else is saying is, less than smart. Yeah.
That's right. Well, that's why I tell these stories, because a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, in leadership, you are either coming from a place of ego or you're coming from a place of love, and when I say love, I mean the way that Thomas Aquinas defined it, which is to will the good of another. You can either come from a mindset of what can I get and what can I take, or you're coming from a mindset of how can I serve? And this is servant leadership, right? I'm not the first person to write this book. I mean, there have been books about this for years. When you come from a service mindset, there's something karmically that happens, that it comes back around and people are drawn to you and pulled towards you. I've had this experience in my own life. I have been a taker and I have had a personal transformation moment where I realized that it was not the way I wanted to be. And then I'm working now on being a giver. And it's a daily practice of of reminding myself to get out of ego, but my own personal results have spoken for themselves. And you look at these outliers, trillionaires, billionaires that seem to be filled with ego, and you think, well, that must be the way. But those are such outliers. I mean, okay, if you're a trillionaire, then I'm sure I have something to learn from you. But I don't think that's the goal. The goal is to be an excellent leader that drives results in the place that we are now, and this is something that does work at scale.
Yes, be an excellent leader in the place that you are right now. It's something I would like to ask you, which is something I sometimes struggle with, and a lot of people also struggle with. Being at a place of leadership and having this imposter syndrome, and also wanting to, be a servant leader at the same time. Sometimes it can be very conflicting because you're like, my am I surrendering because I feel less than? You understand? Or I don't even feel like I deserve to be here in the first place. So I would like you
Mm.
to share about your own experience, like this inner struggle, with imposter syndrome. How did that inner struggle shape the leader that you are today? And how are you now relating to those voices of doubt when they arise?
Yeah, I've had imposter syndrome, I think, my whole life probably, and still struggle with it. Although the story in my head is different now than it was before. Before, I really thought I was fearful that I would get found out. And I spent a lot of time trying to cover up what mistakes I made or, errors that I was worried people would find out. And when I would get caught, so to speak, making a mistake, right, it felt like they finally got me, right? And that's not the same experience that I have now. The imposter syndrome I have now is, I think it maybe comes more from a humility place, which isn't bad. That like, man, am I really I get to talk to a lot of really incredible people and a lot of really successful leaders. And so sometimes I'm in awe of the people around me. And I think that's okay. I think that's wonderful. It's really a great experience for me to be able to learn. And so I come from a curious place more than a shame place. But one of the things that helped me overcome that was it's again a counterintuitive trick, which is the thing that is the opposite of what you want to do when you have imposter syndrome, and that is to ask for feedback. So when I was really deep in my shame about imposter syndrome, the last thing I wanted was feedback about how I could be better, because I thought that it was going to be giving someone power to find me out, right? But I started asking for feedback because I saw someone demonstrate asking for feedback, and it was such a powerful experience for me that I started asking. And what I found was I could have real conversations and learn from those. And so my greatest fear came to light, and yet I still had my job, and yet I was still liked by my colleagues. And so the best thing you can do if you have imposter syndrome is ask for as much feedback as possible, which feels so scary. But when you do it, you learn from it, you become curious, you become desensitized to the scariness of it. And now when I ask for feedback, I'm really grateful for the honesty that I receive, and it hurts a lot less because I know that this is just part of the process. It's all about progress, not perfection.
Yes, all about progress and perfection. Yeah, I was smiling when you said that because I was just thinking about myself so many years ago when I asked for feedback and you get some very constructive feedbacks that hurts a lot. You're like, oh my God, okay, I could just throw my old project away and start all over because from this feedback, it's like I've not done anything sensible. Yeah, but one learns from that basically and one improves from the feedback that one gets. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so when I was writing my book, I just got started. I wrote chapter 1 and I was so proud of it. And I thought it was so good. And I sent it to one of my friends and I asked for feedback and I said, what do you think? And she wrote back and she said, this is terrible. And she said, this is so bad. You need to start with a story. This is just getting straight into the weeds. And I was, I wasn't that devastated because I knew she was coming from love, but I was disappointed because I thought it was really good,
Yeah.
And 4 hours later, I had a brand new chapter 1 that was so much better. And now I'm really proud of the first chapter of my book, and if I had published the first thing, it probably wouldn't have been that good. So it can sting, but that's really just your ego, right? That's you worrying about you. And where I wanted to come from with this book is how can I make sure that this book serves as many people as possible, that when they read it, they come away with something that will be useful to them, and not how can I come away from this book to make sure that they think that I'm awesome as an author, right? That's the ego versus love perspective that you have to choose.
Yes. Earlier you talked about fear, like the fear of being found out when we talked about imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. And that's making me want to ask this question right now. Like you speak a lot about moving from fear-based control to trust-based empowerment. So I would like to know how that feels like, how that shift looks like internally before it shows up in your teams and in the culture or culture.
Yeah, beautiful question. So there's a model that we have in the book on how to shift your mindset. And it's called the shift model. And each letter in shift is an acronym for how to walk through the steps, you know? And so the first letter S is for surrender to reality. Stop fighting reality, right? I mean, so much is changing, and a lot of times we have resistance to change. We don't want it to be the way that it is. We wish that the people were acting differently, the customer was different, everything that we wish was different. We spend too much energy there. So the first thing to do to shift your mindset is to stop fighting reality. And it requires radical acceptance. Reality on reality's terms. Here's where we are. This is what the team looks like. This is what the customer wants. This is how our product is. That's the way that it is, right? And then H stands for have faith. And so it requires help. You cannot do it alone. You have to have faith in something outside of yourself. For me, I have a spiritual faith that I have faith in, a higher power. For others, it could be have faith in the team, the collective intelligence of the team to problem solve. Or it could be, if you don't know and that doesn't resonate, think of what you think the source of all good is. What is the source of all good? Have faith in that. Have faith in good, you know? Then you kind of set the stage for you to take the first real action step, which is identify what's yours. The I stands for identify what's yours,
Mm.
which is what can I control and what can I not control? Stop trying to control everyone else and everyone's experience, and instead control the experiences you're creating, control yourself. And once you focus your energy on what it is that you can control, then you can do the F step, which is to free yourself from fear.
Mm.
And to free yourself from fear is to ask yourself the question, what would it look like right now if all I was worried about was willing the good of the other, of supporting the person? Just do a brain experiment. If I stopped worrying about myself and was only thinking about how I can serve, what would I do? There you've brainstormed from the right place about what you can do, coming from a place of love instead of fear. And then T, the final letter, is to take the next right action, which is rather than just doing more action, which is the action trap, take the next right action. What is the next right thing that you can do coming from a place of love? Focusing, identifying what is yours to own, having faith, and surrendering to reality. And then you'll be in the right headspace to make the decisions day to day.
Oh, I love that so much. Surrender to reality because it is what it is right now. Surrender to it. Then have faith. Like for me, I believe in God. So have faith in God that He will see me through. I also believe in my team. So have faith in the collective intellect of my team, believe that intellectual property that is in my capacity. And then I should identify what I could control and what is out of my control. And once I identify that, I should free myself from fear, the fear that I'm holding on to. And once I'm done with freeing out, letting go of the fear, basically, then I should take the next right step. Take the next right step. Yes.
That's right. Beautiful. You summarized it perfectly.
I mean, I find that so practical. I have to make that use of that in my, my life, personal life, and also my career too. Yeah. I love that so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
So once we're able to identify that, then that way we'll be able to then, build up trust in our team and also avoid the, action trap that I talked about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. The action trap is this endless cycle of activity that feels like progress, but doesn't really move the needle. And it can drive some results. It can make some progress, but it doesn't. You're limiting your potential when you're just trying to throw more action at the problem, and I think a lot of leaders get stuck in that because they're coming from a fear-based place, right? It's
Yes.
fight, flight, or freeze. It's we got to do something. What are we going to do? And they haven't taken the moment to stop fighting reality, have faith, identify what's yours, free yourself from fear, and then take the next right action. That pause can be very powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean that it's the nail on the head because nowadays a lot of leaders equate success with doing more. That's to be more. You have to see to carry out a lot of actions, but you're suggesting something different. I mean, we should stop forcing outcomes, but begin to trust ourselves and the process. Yeah, the process. Taking that
Yeah,
shift process. Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
so Jessica, I read that that your favorite philosophy is yes and.
Mm.
So I would like to learn about that. Like, how has that shit and mindset changed the way you navigate uncertainty, conflict, or unexpected turns in your life?
It's funny. I learned this from a leader that I interviewed for my podcast, actually, called Culture Leaders. And he said, never say no to your boss. And it was really interesting because it sounds like you always must obey your boss, right?
Yeah.
But really, what he was saying was if your boss is asking for something unrealistic, what you can say is, yes, I'll look into that and get back to you. And that allows you to never shut down an idea before you've taken the initiative to understand deeply if that's the right path or not, right? So it's a bit of a political answer. Yes, and I will get back to you if that works, right? So you're always saying yes, but oftentimes a lot of the change resistance, and this isn't just for your boss, right? It's for anyone that comes to you with an idea. Oftentimes we can have preconceived notions or bias about that won't work. No, no, no. Focus on this, right? When we come from a place of let's investigate, maybe, perhaps, right? You're just allowing more to bubble up. It's more of a surrendered mindset. So I like the idea. Sometimes now the downside is, and I am definitely a victim to this, my own victim to this, it means that you've said yes to too much and you have to kind of too much going on. And I go through phases, it's like my life goes in waves where I'm very, very busy and overwhelmed. And then I let go of some things and then I get a little bit bored and then I want to pick something else up. And, I'm never just as homeostasis. Everything is always shifting, and it's all about how you can adapt in the moment to the shift.
Oh yes, yes. Sometimes when one happens to say yes to a lot of things, I always have the fear. I have to let go of that fear. Let's go. I always have this fear that, all of a sudden your table is filled up with a lot of tasks because they'll see you as, oh, Jessica is a go-getter. She gets everything figured out. She says yes to it and, she gets it done. And all of a sudden you're overwhelmed all the time. But from what I'm listening to right now, I understood right now, you always have that wave, basically. Sometimes one has less to do because you let go of them, and sometimes you are overwhelmed, which is part of life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all human. We're all trying to figure it out, right?
Yes. Yes. And talking about being overwhelmed sometimes, I like to learn from your experience, when it comes to burnout. Like nowadays, a lot of people suffer from burnout. I like to learn, like, what does a culture, I like to learn about what a culture could look like, or, working environment could look like that could encourage or facilitate not being burnt out at the place of work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I am a firm believer that everyone is responsible for their own burnout. And, my boss cannot burn me out because in order for my boss to burn me out, I have to agree to engage at the level that maybe he's asking too much of me. I have to opt in, right? And so when we have a burnout culture, it is because people are agreeing to it. They're agreeing to push themselves too hard. And we define taking accountability as making a personal choice to focus on what you can control to drive results. And so, again, the surrender idea is like, where do you stop and I begin? And I can only focus on my own level of burnout. I have been burned out before. And I remember one time calling my boss and saying, I'm totally burned out. I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, you better get that figured out, right? It's
Yeah.
not because he was giving me too much to do. It's because I was taking on too much. And there are some cultures that can ask too much of their employees. And then, I suggest you leave those cultures if that's not working for you. If you can't make space to find that balance. I mean, we all have the ability to make choices about how we show up and where we are. And sometimes burnout comes from being a workaholic. We love working. We want to work. We're using work as a distraction from our lives. And so then we're burned out, but we are our own worst enemy in that situation. So I think we have to take accountability for our own burnout levels.
It's a very personal thing, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that will lead me to, the answer you gave earlier during the white card session. Sometimes it's important to embrace boredom. Just sit down with yourself, meditate, and then you realize, maybe I'm actually running from a problem, and that's why I'm taking up too much at the place of work just to numb or escape some things that I'm supposed to process. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Totally. I've done that for sure.
Yeah. I was about to say maybe I'm preaching to myself right now, but okay, that's a different podcast episode. Well, Jessica, I've learned so much from you, and I know there are more things that we can learn from you. But you provide all of that, on your website, through the services that you offer, on your podcast also. So I'd like you to, tell us about your podcast and the services that you offer to people out there.
Yeah, sure. I have 2 podcasts. One is called Culture Leaders, where I interview leaders about the culture that they're creating. And then the other is called the CEO Daily Brief. And it's a 5-minute daily podcast for CEOs about what you need to pay attention to now. And then if you're interested in working with us on helping create a culture that drives results, you can go to culturepartners.com. Or if you want to hire me to speak, my website is jessicakriegel.com, Kriegel. And follow me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter that comes out every Wednesday called This Week in Culture. So subscribe to that. And I'd love to share my insights with you.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to place a link to your website in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone out there who is a CEO, who is planning to become a CEO, team leader, and a leader in any way or form, even leading yourself, basically, should subscribe, listen to your podcast, subscribe to your newsletter that comes out every Wednesday, follow you on LinkedIn, and start getting those CEO briefing. Basically 5 minutes could change a lot in one's life. Yeah. So as a closing remark, if someone listening today right now feels trapped by limiting beliefs or pressure or the need to prove themselves, as a leader or as a normal person in the day-to-day life, what is the first soulful step that you think you should invite them to take right now?
It's a beautiful question. There's 4 questions you can ask yourself if you are feeling like that, stuck, or that you need support. And the first question is, what is going on? Identify the problem. And then the second question is, what about that can you control? Get focused on what about the problem you can influence or control. The third question is, what else could I try? Brainstorming from that place of understanding what you can control. And then finally, what am I going to do by when? If you ask yourself those 4 questions, you'll be able to get yourself out of any situation and take accountability for doing it.
Yes. Oh, make use of the SHIFT acronym. Sorry, that's reality, have faith in God, or have faith in what you believe in, identify what you can control or not control, and free yourself from the fear, and then take the next necessary step. Or something like that.
That's right.
Jessica,
Thank you
you've taught
so
me a
much
lot.
for having me.
Thank you
This
so
has
much.
been such a pleasure. I
Thank you
love
so
being
much.
on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.